I grew up with two fathers. One of them had a PhD. The other never finished the 8th grade. Both men worked hard their whole lives. Both earned good money. But one of them died wealthy, and the other left bills behind. I call them my rich dad and my poor dad. And growing up with both of them taught me something school never did. They didn't agree on almost anything. One believed money was the root of struggle. The other believed the lack of it was. Having two very different views forced me to stop just accepting what I was told and start actually thinking for myself. Here's the biggest difference between them, and it came down to just a few words. One of my dads had a habit. Anytime something cost money, he'd say, "I can't afford that." The other dad banned that phrase completely. Instead, he made me ask a different question. How can I afford this? One sentence shuts your brain down. The other one turns it on. And that's the whole idea behind financial education. It's not about how much money you make. It's about how you think about money. See, most of us never actually learn about money in school. We learn about math and history and science. But nobody sits us down and actually teaches us how money works. So we learn it at home instead, from our parents. Which means whatever your parents believed about money, good or bad, you probably absorbed it without even realizing. My rich dad had a simple rule that changed how I saw everything. Assets put money in your pocket. Liabilities take money out. Most people think their house is their biggest asset. My rich dad disagreed completely. He said if your house is costing you money every month instead of making you money, it's not an asset. It's a liability wearing a nice disguise. That one shift in thinking is the difference between working for money your whole life and eventually having money work for you. So the real question isn't how much money you make. It's whether your money is working for you or whether you're still working for it. Here's another place where my two dads couldn't have disagreed more. One of them believed in safety. The other believed in learning to handle risk. One dad built his whole life around a steady paycheck, a pension, and job security. The other built his life around owning things that made money on their own. Neither one was lazy, neither one was foolish. They just placed their trust in two completely different systems. And here's something I noticed as a kid that stuck with me for the rest of my life. The words we repeat about ourselves tend to come true. One of my dads used to say, "I'll never be rich." And over time, that's exactly what happened. The other dad did the opposite. Even during his worst financial year, he still called himself a rich man. Just broke, never poor. He believed there's a real difference between being broke and being poor. Broke is temporary. Poor is a mindset that sticks around. One dad avoided talking about money altogether. He'd say things like, "Money doesn't really matter to me." The other dad said the opposite, plainly and often. Money is power. I started to realize something important. It wasn't how much money either of them earned that set them apart. It was what they believed about money. So at 9 years old, I made a decision. I chose which voice I was going to listen to, even though it wasn't the one with all the college degrees. It wasn't an easy choice, and it wasn't really about picking one dad over the other. It was about learning to think for myself instead of just accepting what I was told. There's an old idea about two roads splitting apart in a forest, and how the path you choose ends up shaping your entire life. Most people take the path that looks the most worn down, the one everyone else is already walking. I chose the path that looked a little less traveled, and looking back, that one decision changed absolutely everything. Once I made that choice, my real financial education began, and it didn't happen in a classroom. It happened over the next 30 years, through conversations, mistakes, and lessons that kept repeating until they finally clicked. By the time I fully understood what he'd been trying to teach me, he stopped teaching. Not because he ran out of things to say, because I finally got it. Here's the core idea behind everything he taught me. Money is just one form of power, but real financial education is a much bigger kind of power, because money comes and money goes. But once you actually understand how money works, you carry that understanding with you for life. Most people never get taught this, so they spend their whole lives working hard for money without ever learning how to make money work for them. That's the real lesson behind this whole story. It was never about which dad had more money. It was about which dad taught me how to think about it. This has been part one of our series exploring the mindset lessons behind Rich Dad, Poor Dad. There's a lot more to cover, so if this helped you see money differently, hit like and subscribe. New parts drop every 3 days.